Stories that matter. The journey of life from birth to death is an extraordinary trip, sometimes filled with great joy and excitement, but at other times filled with pain, sorrow, and disappointment. Stories That Matter shares both extremes with you. Sometimes our stories will make you feel very happy, but the journey of life is not all happiness. Other times, the journey of life will make you feel sad, for all of us have experienced both extremes. Stories That Matter will begin right after the break with a story that will touch your heart in the journey of life.
Welcome to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Frankie Valens of Frankie Valens Ministry. And that doesn't even seem like those words would go together. Frankie Valens Ministry. Because when you started, let's go back to when you were about, 18, 19, somewhere along in there. And somehow or another, well, you tell the story. What in the world, how did you ever get in the music business?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've loved music since I was a little kid. And I used to dance with the doorknobs and posts and everything, even with a broom. I love music. But I didn't really get into music until finally I got a single called The Purple People Eater. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That was my first single.
Ooh, ooh, ah, ah, Purple People Eater. Is that the one?
That's the one, yeah.
You did that song?
No. That's the first song I bought, which triggered me into wanting to be able to sing rather than dance. And so that's my first single, and I really enjoyed that. And I think being a pop singer just didn't happen overnight. I was born and raised in Kansas City, but when I went to Bible college, I didn't stay a whole year. I thought, I don't want to be a preacher. I don't want to serve the Lord full time. What am I doing here? And so I quit Bible college and went to New Jersey and got a job, and that's where I got discovered.
Where'd you get a job at?
Well, I was working at a Suburban Propane. I was working at Rockaway Sales, and some guy was in there. He heard me humming to the music. He said, "Frankie, it sounds like you got a pretty good voice." My son, I'm the manager of my son's band. That's at Eminent Domain. He said, "I would love to have you come out and audition for my son's band." I thought, oh my, here I'm working 2 jobs, trying to go to school to become an accountant to college. I'm thinking a band, a lead singer of a band makes a lot more money than these 2 jobs put together. So I went out and I heard them playing, and I thought, boy, this band is so good. Only 3 pieces back then. And they gave me a little 45 RPM record. They said, take this home, learn this song, and come back next Saturday and audition. Well, I was beside myself. I came back, I memorized that song, and the song just happened to be Unchained Melody. And I thought, this is a rock band. What do they want me to sing Unchained Melody for? I think they wanted to know if I had the voice to carry it through from rock to ballads. And when I went in there, I went down the stairs, and here was the drummer, lead guitars and bass guitars standing there, and the manager pacing the floor. They started Unchained Melody. They had brought a keyboard in for the melody, and I sang that song, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And I became their new lead singer. That's what started, yeah.
For Eminent Domain.
For Eminent Domain. And from there, it just graduated to better bands, bigger bands, until I started singing This Magic Moment, Smoke Is in Your Eyes, all remakes of songs that were out there before, just like Unchained Melody. Several people, including Les Baxter's orchestra, also recorded that song. Several people over the years, including the Righteous Brothers. So any good song is going to be recorded again. And I enjoyed singing, I enjoyed traveling. My first episode was out in New Jersey at a county fair. Linda Ronstadt and her Stone Ponies were there, and I was able to sing there, and my first time I was so excited.
Was she on with you on the program that night?
Yeah.
So she listened to you sing, you listened to her sing?
Yeah. And her band turned out to be the Eagles.
Huh.
They were a studio band that came out, and they broke away from her and became the Eagles. So, and look what happened to me, look what happened to her.
Well, okay. If you bring that point up, why we can, and I would say Frankie's done pretty darn well.
Yes.
But go through just a little bit more of that music, because now you're with a band, and immediately you have talent-wise outgrown that band to a bigger, to another, and you're doing recordings that are being sold in the record stores.
Right.
Am I right?
Little 45s.
What was the label?
Well, it was, what was it back then? It was a Sunburst.
Sunburst, yeah.
Records.
Okay. All right.
And then it went on to, one company wanted to keep me, but then RCA Records wanted to buy my contract, but this little record company did not want to sell it, so I ended up not becoming a big star.
Well, I beg to differ with you, but we'll get to that in just a moment. We're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Stories That Matter with Frankie Valens. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Frankie Valens. We would have been back a little bit sooner, but his wife, Phyllis, is just off screen, and she was laughing, so we had to wait to come back for a little bit, but now we're all right. So, Frankie, tell me now, you're into the music business, and you keep moving forward with one band after another. You're in New Jersey, and you perform on the same program with Linda Ronstadt and the Eagles. Then what happens with your music?
Well, back then they were called the Stone Ponies.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then when they broke away from Linda Ronstadt, they became the Eagles, and they had their own hits. But yes, I traveled around the East Coast mainly until I got a new manager, and then we went into Canada and started traveling from state to state, and recorded some of the singles, like This Magic Moment, Smoke Is in Your Eye, She Cried. And that little known hit I recorded later on, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. People remember that. But I got to be, my name was so synonymous with music back then. I remember somebody introducing me at this gig I was at. As soon as I walked out on the stage, all these girls were screaming. I knew something was going on. I never became a big star, but I knew I was on my way. And later on, I got invited to be showcased in Las Vegas at the Sahara Hotel. Sang in front of 35,000 people at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City. A lot of that happened, but I wasn't really happy. I remember being showcased in Las Vegas, and we practiced all day. And somebody from the band threw me an apple. They said, you haven't eaten all day. Why don't you have an apple? And I looked at that apple and I thought, God made that apple so perfect and so unique. And here I am, glorifying myself, being showcased at the Sahara Hotel tonight, and I'm not giving God any glory at all. And that was coming through my mind.
How old were you? I
was about 25 when I started. I don't know when I was in Las Vegas. I probably was, I was about 26, 27 years old when I was in Las Vegas. But that was a start of a big career. And right after that gig in Las Vegas, we started hitting up at the Utah and all around. And that's when the band started taking drugs. And I said, I know better. I don't want to take drugs. I don't want to smoke. I don't want to drink. I just want to sing. And if I hadn't been the lead singer of that band, they probably would have kicked me out. But here we are touring.
Because you didn't fit in anymore.
I didn't fit in anymore, yeah. If I wasn't the lead singer, I wouldn't have a band.
Well, let me ask you about this, Frankie, because, if I just take what you've said here, and I'm guessing, my sport was the auto racing, so I'm familiar with that. But I'm guessing in your event that you were in, people now it's, oh wow, this is Frankie, listen to him, and it just sort of in your own mind or in their mind begins to raise you up, and your own self-worth becomes a lot, and everything around you, whether it's family, friends, your faith begins to go down.
That's right.
Would that be accurate for the profession?
You really nailed it, because I remember when the girls started screaming and I had to have bodyguards and roadies along, I felt like I was better than everybody else. It's just a psyche happens because I remember heading out the back door of a club. People had to guard me, and my bodyguard was there, and all of a sudden this gal came around the corner, and they said, "Oh, Frankie!" And I said, "Oh no!" And she had a picture of me in her wallet, and her husband was standing right there. And I thought, I got to get out of this. I can't do this anymore. But
because they were beginning to idolize you?
Idolize me and have my picture in their wallets and their purses and their... and I thought, I got to do something. My dad was a pastor. He never came to see me as the pop singer, but he would come to see me as a gospel singer. Go figure. And so that's the way my life was right then and there. We ended up in Denver, and there was a big college north of Denver, and we went to the big college, and I told myself, I can't do this anymore. So I told the band, I said, I can't do this. And so I left the band, stayed in Denver. My dad was preaching. I started going to his church.
Was he living in Denver at the time?
He was preaching there.
Oh.
And so that's kind of changed my life. Right then and there is when I quit the band.
Well, when you quit the band, was it because, well, they're getting into drugs, they're doing alcohol, they're doing other things, I don't fit in and I don't want to fit in? Was that, it was just sort of a divorce that took place because you're not fitting in, they needed you so they would tolerate you.
Yeah.
But you didn't need them because of what was taking place.
You got that right again. See, I need him to take him on the road with me.
I'd have been a good roadie. So singing up there with you would have got both of us thrown off pretty quick. But so then you go to Denver and you're with your father who's preaching in Denver. And then what happens?
Well, I turned my life around. I went forward and rededicated my life to the Lord.
Were you done with the rock music then?
Oh yeah, that was it for rock music.
You just, okay, that chapter's done.
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy because I remember I cut my hair real short, wore a three-piece suit, and got a job as an accountant at a luggage company there in Denver. I won't say the name. And I stayed there for 3 or 4 years. And people never knew who I was because I took my real name back. See, Frankie Valens used to be a stage name.
Uh-huh.
And then when I took my real name back, people... Oh, you're Frank Piper, okay. But see, I wonder if the guest you had here, that Piper guy, I wonder if he's not
Don
related.
Piper?
Yeah, I wonder if he's not related.
Oh, I'm sure he is. Look just like you.
Oh, he's so full of it.
Don Piper's a good man. He's a pastor in Texas, was when he wrote the book 90 Minutes in Heaven. And so what a time you've had. What a time you've had, Frankie.
Oh, yeah.
And, or do you want me to call you Frank?
No, my legal name is Frankie.
You changed it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right, we're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Stories That Matter with Frankie. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Frank Piper, but you would know him as Frankie Valens. And Frankie, we've been having a lot of fun here while we cut away for breaks. But so if we move forward from here, you go back into being an accountant, and life just continues on from there. You're done with the rock music, and then you sort of get laid off from that job, and you don't go back into rock music, but at some point in time you start going to church and you meet a very special woman in church.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, my dad was preaching at this church in a certain part of Denver, but I was kind of wanting to go around to other churches, and so I visited this one church, and Phyllis came in as the choir director, the new choir director.
And you just happened to be performing there.
No.
Or not performing?
No. I was.
Okay, I'll stop guessing.
I was
You
in
tell
the choir.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So I asked her to sing with me, and she's heard me sing before in the choir because I sing a high tenor. And I asked her to sing with me. She said, "I can't believe he asked me to sing with him," because she's more of a concert pianist than a singer. So we sang a beautiful duet, and that was the beginning of the whole kind of relationship. Chasing her for 2 years, not realizing that I was a pop singer.
And you never told her that story
No, never
about
told
you.
her. No.
How did she figure it out?
Well, we were married and living in a little mom and pop kind of a home there, and I was playing an LP of mine, and it said Frankie Valens all over it, but I just took it out the holder and put it in and started playing. She said, "Well, that's you singing." I said, "Yeah, that's me." But then when I took the record off, it said, "Frank Piper wrote this song on here." And so I said, "Yeah, I got something to tell you."
How long had you been married then?
Not too long.
Okay. And so you told her about being a rock star.
Yeah. Well, it didn't all come out until a manager heard about me and brought me in, and he started talking. My eyes got so big because I didn't want to talk about it. And Phyllis was sitting right there.
Looking at you.
Looking at me. I said, I had to explain my whole life. And that's what started the whole thing about me being a pop singer. And then she realized, boy, if I had known you were a rock singer, I would never have married you.
Never married you, I can imagine. Tell me about the ministry that you guys have now.
Well, it wasn't long. I think we were married less than 2 or 3 years when I got laid off my job as an assistant controller of a company. And I was just on unemployment, and I thought, oh, I miss singing. I was singing in a choir, I was singing on praise teams. But I said, Phyllis, why don't we do this full time? You're a concert pianist. I'm a singer. Let's do this full time. And she said, oh no, you're not getting me out on the road. Well, the Lord had a long talk with her, and we ended up heading out to Hays, Kansas for our very first concert. And we so enjoyed it. And we knew that the Lord was touching our heart to share our talents with the public.
Gospel music?
Gospel music.
And so then after you would do the gospel music, would you then speak to them and share a message?
Share my message. We would both have testimonies about what brought us to this point. I never took drugs, never smoked a cigarette in my entire life, never liked to drink. And so we became a testimony in how we met, how we started with the ministry. And the Lord just started blessing us, and all these churches started opening up to us. And that's when we decided, because we were going as Frank and Phyllis Piper. And then somebody got a hold of us and said, you need to change it to Frankie Valens. And that's how the Frankie Valens ministry started. It's us getting together. And
you actually went in and legally changed your name.
Right.
Back to what your stage name was, Frankie Valens?
Exactly. And we had a lawyer, and he said, I'll take it into the judge, and well, it should be but 5 or 10 minutes, and that's all it took.
And so Phyllis changed her name to Phyllis Eastwood, right?
Well, we didn't realize we were supposed to have middle names, and so we just said Frankie Valens, Phyllis Valens, and we went in to get our driver's license, make everything legal and Social Security and all that. And they said, what's your middle name? I said, I don't have one. Well, you got to have one. And Phyllis went in and they said, where's your middle name? Well, we didn't think about it. The judge just said, Phyllis Valens, Frankie Valens. So that's
no middle name, no middle initial. Okay, that happens. That's all right. And so now with the ministry, do you still do your ministry? You still travel a lot? You know, we're going to put the contact information for Frankie Valens Ministries up on the screen right now. And so they'll be able to copy down that information, and it'll be on at the end of the show too. So they may make contact with you because you still travel, and I know you're living in the southern part of the state of Kansas, but you will travel lots of places to go to share.
Definitely.
And if they just make contact with you, well, you'll be happy to visit with them and and you're delighted with the ministry, aren't you?
Exactly. We don't charge a fee. In our 30 years of ministry, we've never charged a fee. Now, if it's secular, if they want me to do oldies music, we will charge a fee. But any church will come for a love offering or a donation to our ministry.
Oh, that's awesome. That's tremendous. Do you still do your old music, the old The Lion King and those things?
Yeah, once in a while. Sometimes a church will have a Sunday night or a Saturday night. Like we're going to be this weekend in Ford, Kansas. They have an outreach to the community, so I'll do a lot of the oldies and my testimony and into our gospel. And then Sunday morning we'll do all of our gospel. So yeah, it's an outreach to the community to have me come in and say, "Oh, Frankie Valens is going to be here for one night." And so
that's awesome. That's awesome. What do you do? I know you reach out to a lot of people. Are you an ordained minister?
Yes.
How long have you been an ordained minister? Many years, anyway.
Well, how many years has it been?
2012.
And your other half says 22?
2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah, I was asked to go out and preach at a church out in western Kansas. Well, they laid hands on me and ordained me as an ordained pastor.
That's amazing. We're going to cut away. We're going to take our final break, and you're watching Frankie Valens, and we'll be seeing you right after break. Welcome back to Stories That Matter. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my special guest, Frankie Valens. Frankie, we're talking about your ministry, Frankie Valens Ministries, and the number of years you've been an ordained minister, but you've also been, you've done a lot of writing. You've been an author of a number of volumes. How many are you at?
Well, I've written 10 novels. They're mainly Christian novels. Some are mysteries, some are murder mysteries. But what started all was my autobiography. We were traveling into Denver from the West Coast, Phyllis and I, in our ministry, in a rented motorhome. And the Lord spoke to me, and I stopped the motorhome on the edge of a cliff, got out and stood there, and I looked at God's beauty, and God spoke to me, said, "People need to hear your story." And so it took me almost 10 years later to finally, because I didn't know how to write. I know how to sing, but I didn't know how to write. And the Lord just guided me into doing my autobiography, which is 660 some pages, but pictures and everything in it.
Wow, that's awesome.
But it comes before I was born, to the pop singing field, and to our gospel.
Awesome. And you will be able to go to Frankie's website, get that information. You'll be able to see the novels, order them, and get the disc, and get the gospel music, the original rock and roll music that he did. And thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed Stories That Matter with Frankie Valens.